Well, for an in-depth analysis on this latest political development, we're joined now by Somna Sambo, Arise Politics Editor and Director of News, and Dr. Sam Amadi, Director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen, for joining us on Newsnight. Okay, so where do we begin from? Let me start with you, Dr. Sam Amadi. I mean, would you say that the ADC may have walked itself into this what seems to be a judicial trap? They had this coming. Would you say so?
Well, if most parties are working themselves into a trap, that means the focus should be on the trap. Too many traps. I mean, right. Labour Party seems to be in a trap, NNPP in a trap, PDP in a trap, ADC in a trap. The only party not in a trap is the ruling party. So yes, in a sense, is how you categorize it. ADC working itself in a trap, or the trap setter being expert at setting traps and setting them on. Now, there are many things to look at this case. First and foremost, it's still pending before the court in terms of determining whether whether the vice chairman rightly, resigned, whether David Mark became leader, chair of the party and the school properly. But the suit, the key issue here is still so-called status quo ante. And the status quo
INEC is saying until the court rules.
And the decision the court gave was actually okay before we determine even the injunction and the remedies. Let's wait so that nobody damages the case beyond the relief they get. Does that trigger INEC's action? So INEC says 7 days after this decision, after we put these people, uploaded them, now we are platforming them in response to this series of letters. So the first question they ask ourselves is, INEC is a party to most of these suits.
Right.
So why is INEC always contingent on, after some time, INEC kind of takes action? That's number one. Number two is to say, in a bigger scale, what does it speak to us about indeterminacy, about leadership of any party? And the role the courts are playing. Some of the books around where democracy fails, the notable thesis is that oftentimes it's Democrats who win election and trigger rules to undermine democracy. Right. So if you see series of cases, series of decisions, and how INEC responds to them, the first issue is, are we walking into what Chiro Carlo, a substantial legal scholar, said that we might run an election where there be no contest. We're going to have election where it's like a Abacha scheme. The same Abacha, we bring back Abacha kind of process where everybody is only one candidate.
5 fingers of a left.
So the first issue here is the legality of it. First, as a lawyer, I didn't think that INEC was under any compulsion to upload, to deplatform David Mark. It's not a direct response to keep the matter, because by the way, by the time you went to court, Bello went to court, David Mark was already
yes.
But David Mark and his team were already exercising de facto control of the party. So if the status quo would be okay, they're already here, and nothing would actually damage if, for example, INEC kept what was on, and then the court has got the accepted hearing. So again, question is, why can't the court quickly set up and decide this matter? So this idea of the platforming David Mark and the secretary, when they are about to do
a convention,
right, it should be interpreted as bad faith. Okay. Why INEC wait this long? So for me, the legal merits are very arguable at best, at worst, they are not non-existent.
Let's talk the politics, Somna Sambo. The 2027 election timetable is effectively in motion. As Dr. Amadi has just highlighted, ADC is preparing for its convention. But can you fault INEC's decision in this instance to say we are not recognizing any sides? Does it risk becoming a referee in internal party democracy? And what does this mean for ADC going into the convention and 2027 election?
Thank you so much, Adesua. From this perspective you've raised, I will say that all parties here are to be, blamed. Let's start from the African Democratic Congress itself. I mean, when this issue came up last year, I think the ADC led by David Mark treated this with levity. I mean, it got to Federal High Court, and then eventually, when this case came before the court, I mean, David Mark's leadership just felt, okay, the court didn't really have jurisdiction to hear this. And then instead of allow the process to actually go on, they quickly just rushed to the Court of Appeal to go and, talk about the ex parte order. And in that ex parte motion that was brought before the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal then ruled on March 12th and said, look, yeah, this court, go back to that same court, let this issue be determined. And they lost. Yeah. But they took it with levity, and you will just wonder why that could be. Maybe they just felt, okay, it wasn't so strong enough and all of that. What's the bone of contention here? Nafi Balagombe, who used to be the National Vice Chairman of the ADC, then he's still claiming his position is still trite, saying that, look, Raf Okenwosu, who handed over the party to the David Mark leadership, they all resigned. The claim was that all executive at the national level resigned so that the David Mark-led National Working Committee will come on board. Yeah. But he's claiming that he did not sign any resignation letter, that they should provide the resignation letter. And I thought that the David Mark-led National Working Committee would ask Raf Nwosu, who handed over the party to them, to provide that evidence of, Nafi Balagombe. Yes, doing that. And if that was not available, immediately he could have gone to, have a gentleman agreement with him and all of that. But they allowed this to go on. And then that, judgment on the motion, not the substantive case, came by the Court of Appeal on March 12th. And some orders were given by that same Court of Appeal. Let both parties remain neutral while the Federal High Court goes into the substantive case and then determine. Okay, so then this judgment on that motion was delivered March 12th. What was INEC waiting since March 12th? Because INEC is beginning to look like it's partisan. Why is it now that the ADC is beginning to look like it's gathering strength that INEC is suddenly waking up? Calculate from March 12th to April 1.
Right. Well over 2 weeks.
Yeah, so at what point is INEC trying to make us look like, okay, they were naive about it, or they were still trying to consult? How long does it take to consult? And now, like Dr. Sam Mamadi has said, if you look at the case of Labour Party, you see clearly there that even when there was a court order on Labour Party, Julius Abure's name was there for so long,
for a very long time,
including when eventually journalists like us talked to INEC and said, why is this man's name still here? They will eventually then go ahead and remove Julius Abure's name, but they left Julius Abure's phone number right there. And we're beginning to question the neutrality of INEC. And this is what Nigerians are beginning to say. Look, if you are not claiming that you want to be neutral to all parties, you should have done that immediately. Between then and now, ADC wouldn't have gone ahead to fix his congresses and fix his convention. Yeah. Does INEC know where ADC is getting its funding from? APC may be having its funding because it has members in government. But these are opposition parties. Within the economy that we are operating right now, people have set in motion congresses, convention, and you just come from nowhere and you say, look, you are now obeying this judgment. People should remain, you will become neutral. Then people are beginning to read meanings into the system. Right. And like you said, people are beginning to think, is there going to be election in 2027? Or there are subterranean moves to ensure that opposition political parties do not field candidates, which is dangerous to democracy itself.
And that brings me into the question of what the implications are, as for both for the ADC, as we move to the 2027 election, and what options are there for the ADC at this point?
Well, I think it's very dire. First, ADC has to have appealed, like you said. This is preliminary issue. Nobody determined the merit. First, there is no order mandating INEC to remove the names. Even when under Julius Abure, there was specific INEC did obey. So he made a point around it's becoming partisan. Somebody told me 2 days ago that INEC is going to register ADC. 2 days ago, an insider. So what I can say is this: INEC is working clearly to overcharge the system. They're talking about voter registration. They're talking about a small window for voter registration, validation. They are now de-platforming the ruling party. what I see is that
Opposition
maybe,
party.
the opposition party, sorry. What I see that INEC, ADC may continue with what they're doing, which then makes INEC look like a lame dog. If ADC says we're not going to do anything and wait, the time is running out.
Yeah, time is running out. And not only that, Dr. Sam, let me just add something to you. There's something about the issues of tax identification number, the issues of filing your tax appeal. You know, previously, whenever we are heading towards election, they will say, go and file all your tax details and all of that.
Yes.
Now, in this new electoral act, it's asking for your name to be submitted by INEC and all of that. So what is going to happen is that a lot of politicians who have not filed their taxes are going to find out that they may not be able to run for this election, and it will create chaos because the electoral act came very late. People have to go and pay or file taxes. That it may be too late, and the Nigerian Revenue Service is already compiling list of tax defaulters. In all of this, we are beginning to prepare a chaotic democratic process within a very short time, and the legitimacy of the election may be called to bear, and the winner may not be able to claim the outcome of the election legitimately, and INEC itself will be in trouble.
And that's a very
so the National Assembly, the National Security Advisor, all institutions of state should know that we are heading to somewhere that nobody knows about,
It
and
does
it
look
will
like
be
a picture
dangerous for
of
democracy.
gentlemen. We have
Just
to
the last
go.
one.
We have
And
to
the
go.
political party should behave themselves.
Just this way.
Okay.
We're heading towards
All right, Dr. Sam
And the
Amadi.
ADC has to be blamed too, because they failed to recognize the judicial process.
You did
but
say
that's
so.
not to say both INEC
And the danger
and the
that
system
INEC
Okay,
should be
gentlemen,
left
we really
alone.
need to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi. It's a really important conversation, and you have painted such a gloomy picture.
Yeah.
We do hope that, we do begin to see a reversal before 2027. Dr. Sam Amadi is the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, and Somna Sambo is our politics editor and our director of news. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.